want a war? You're gonna get one.
Now get the guns, the drugs from my generation. I'll take the fall, the saints, and across the nation. And it's a
Welcome everyone to Reliving the War, and welcome to the 24th of February 1997. It's the night after Super Brawl 7. WCW is live tonight from Sacramento, California, while WWF Raw takes place inside the Manhattan Center in New York City. Raw is also a live broadcast tonight. As always, WCW will rely on fans having already checked out the pay-per-view from the night before Super Brawl, so make sure you watch the video I uploaded all about that show. And if you're all caught up and you're ready to go, then let's get started. Also guys, just a small reminder to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It helps me out big time, and hit the notification bell too if you want to know when new videos go live. Alright, let's take a look at this week's episodes of Raw and Nitro. This episode of Raw features an ECW invasion, but you're going to have to sit and wait it out for a moment. The opening match features the Godwinns taking on the new Blackjacks, while WCW Nitro also puts on a tag team match, the Public Enemy taking on Steve McMichael and new member of the Four Horsemen, Jeff Jarrett. Big Mongo clearly isn't too happy about having to team up with Double J, a man who beat him last night thanks to Deborah. The Public Enemy, meanwhile, won a triple threat tag team match at Super Brawl, which was supposed to make them the #1 contenders for the tag titles. So why Harlem Heat are in the main event getting a shot at the belts instead is anyone's guess. Maybe it was changed because Rick and Scott Steiner didn't compete as originally advertised? Who knows? This match came to an end when Deborah handed over the magical briefcase for Mongo to attack Rocco Rock, but instead, Big Steve smacked Double J, much to the fans' delight. This resulted in the fake Double J getting pinned, and afterwards, Flair and Anderson came out to calm things down. Flair told both men that they need to get on the same page, and Double A reminded Jeff and Mongo that they were the only two active and healthy members of the Four Horsemen at the moment, with Benoit being hurt, Flair being hurt, and Double A alludes to himself being injured in some capacity also. Mongo and Double J are forced to shake hands, and the Four Horsemen continue to look like a shell of their former selves. Over on Raw, the new Blackjacks make their Monday night debut. The team consists of Justin Hawk Bradshaw and Barry Windham, now renamed the Blackjack Bradshaw and Blackjack Windham. Any team with new in their name usually gets a fair amount of backlash from fans, but I will say this, I'd rather have Blackjack Windham over the Stalker. A few things here. First, the crowd chanted Nitro sucks and Hogan sucks during the bout.
Clothesline. The Godwinn family are going to be here live tonight, and we're just going to see.
And also, we saw the UFC's Ken Shamrock sitting in the audience. Jerry Lawler said he and Shamrock are good old friends who go way back. The match ended with Bradshaw hitting a big lariat. Windham pins Phineas. Phineas got a foot on the bottom rope, but the referee didn't see it. After losing the match, the Godwinns decided to throw a bucket of slop all over poor Mike Chioda. It was right after this match though where the fun really began. The Eliminators, Perry Saturn and John Cronus hit the ring, and they hit a poor ring assistant with the total elimination, one of the best looking double team finishers in the business. Paulie Dangerously then gets in the ring and he tells Jerry Lawler that his challenge has been accepted. ECW is in the building. The fans go crazy. Jerry Lawler looks on in disgust, and Paulie introduces the next matchup, Little Guido versus Big Stevie Cool. On Nitro we have Jim Duggan versus Galaxy? What the fuck? Oh, it's Damien 666. Did you know that Damien also wrestled as Ultraman 2, Ultraman 2000 and Amigo Ultraman? Yeah, I want to just watch the Raw stuff too, but let's have a quick look at the Nitro match before checking out the BWO and Guido. Duggan brings it to the corner right away, and I'm just going to call him Ultraman. Ultraman takes a beating quite early on. A back body drop from Hacksaw gets followed up with a few clotheslines, and Ultraman has to take a timeout on the outside. Hacksaw goes to the outside too, and he gives Ultraman a beating. Duggan even exposes the floor, and he hits a slam on the concrete. What on earth did Ultraman do to piss off Hacksaw so much? Back inside the ring, Ultraman tries to lay in some offense, but Duggan simply is not in the mood for selling anything tonight, and Ultraman destroys a small city when he falls on his back. A few more clubbing blows in the corner send Ultraman to the outside, and even the commentators wonder why Duggan is being so aggressive tonight. They guess it's maybe because of what happened to Roddy Piper at Super Brawl. The match gets back inside the ring where Duggan dodges a moonsault. He then hits a clothesline. He screams Hogan's name as he nails Ultraman with a taped fist, and that's it all over. We get an interview afterwards, and Duggan says he can't believe Randy Savage has joined forces with Hogan. Duggan tells Hogan and Savage to remember all those Make-A-Wish kids, the Special Olympics, all the fans and all their friends. Duggan says Hogan has a black heart, but Duggan isn't going to run away. He isn't going to try and sneak attack the NWO. He'll kick down the front door if it means getting to Hollywood Hogan and the rest of the New World Order. Jim Duggan is going to save us all from NWO tyranny, and it started tonight with the destruction of the legendary Ultraman. Paulie takes a seat at the commentary desk as the BWO tell Jerry Lawler that ECW and the Blue World Order are taking over Monday Night Raw. The Blue Meanie then gets interrupted by Guido and our match gets underway. Vince McMahon was laughing during the BWO promo. Big Stevie Cool hits a fallaway slam as Jerry Lawler calls the BWO a rip-off faction. Paulie questions exactly what it is that the BWO are ripping off, and Vince McMahon says it's a rip-off of a clothing line known as NWO. Raven shows up at the entranceway, the ECW heavyweight champion, and Vince McMahon accidentally calls Stevie Richards Stevie Ray when Guido dropkicks his opponent to the outside. Raven stands over Big Stevie Cool, and as our match gets back in the ring, we get reminded that we're watching a WWF show when Goldust cuts a split-screen promo. When questioned about his thoughts on ECW, Goldust says he's the premier and everything else is just B-movies. The interview gets cut short and McMahon says there's some technical difficulties backstage. Jerry Lawler says there's some technical difficulties in the ring as Guido maintains control. Stevie takes a sit-down powerbomb from the corner and Guido applies a chinlock as the camera feed gets restored, and man, Goldust is absolutely wiped out here and he can't even hide it. Look at this.
To do her job, 110%. That's why she came.
Oh boy. Marlena is taking part in an arm wrestling contest later against Sunny. Yeah. And Goldust says he'll keep an eye out for that woman who's been attacking Marlena over these past few weeks. Stevie comes back with a famouser, he then hits a powerbomb, and the match ends with a Stevie kick. Big Stevie Cool wins on Monday Night Raw, and the WWF's Monday Night show already feels very fresh and different. The aforementioned arm wrestling contest is up next on Raw, while WCW Nitro presents Joe Gomez vs Hugh Morrus. I'm not going to spend much time on this stuff, sorry guys. The Gomez vs Morrus match ended with Gomez getting an upset win, and then he declared that he wants to begin moving up the ranks and join the fight against the New World Order. No he didn't. No laughing matter moonsault, Gomez does the job. After the match there was a panning shot of the audience and, ooh, that's even more creepy than the real Sting. Fantastic job with the jacket and shirt though. I like how he just stares at the camera too. What a guy. Our arm wrestling contest, which I guess was built up over superstars or something, was as riveting as you'd imagine it to be. Honky Tonk Man was our guest referee for this Battle of the Titans. The competitors come out, Sunny reveals her outfit, which gets a great pop, while Marlena comes out looking like she's going to wrestle a full 20-minute match. Seeing as Marlena was rushed to hospital recently and because Marlena has been hurt by China, Sunny gives her the option of forfeiting this arm wrestling contest. And Marlena says it's great that Sunny stopped working on 42nd Street in order to compete tonight. Nice. Marlena decides she's going to arm wrestle, there's a bit of time wasting, and it comes to an end when Sunny throws powder on Marlena. And have a listen to a fan who must have been highly invested in this competition.
Can you
Look, I think Marlena
Ken Shamrock watches on, wondering what dimension of hell he's ended up in tonight. Savio Vega then comes down to get a closer look at Marlena. Goldust runs in for the save. We lose the camera feed for a little moment, and then the next match on Raw gets underway. Savio Vega vs Goldust is up next on Raw, while WCW Nitro presents two matches, Parka vs Ice Train and the Faces of Fear vs Chris Jericho and Eddie Guerrero. I want to cover the remaining ECW matches in full, so I'm just going to talk about the ending of the Goldust match. Miguel Perez Jr., who we last saw on WCW Nitro, provides commentary for this match, and he talks about how upset he is at his fellow countryman Savio Vega, and he doesn't know why Savio joined the nation. It feels a bit random. Perez doesn't get nothing more than a formal introduction from McMahon, so there would still be many WWF fans who wouldn't have a clue who this guy was. Savio ends up selling a kiss from Goldust, and Goldust was in position to win the match, but the nation got involved. Miguel Perez Jr. then looked like a total chump when he jumped into the ring and Savio threw him right back out. But Perez came back with a top rope dropkick that admittedly got a great pop from the audience. Perez had a few commitments with CMLL he needed to wrap up before starting with the WWF full time, and it wouldn't take long before he was actually partnered up with Savio Vega. Over on Nitro, the commentary team let us know that Benoit, Sullivan and Jackie are still in hospital, and that means we won't be getting a Kevin Sullivan puzzle book to solve on Nitro. Thank fuck. Teddy Long cuts a split screen promo where he says Kevin Sullivan wouldn't have done the same for Jackie when it came to the table spot at Super Brawl. Tony Schiavone wonders why Teddy Long has this interest in Jackie as Ice Train hits a power slam inside the ring. A big old belly bounce from Train puts Parka down, and it actually looked pretty good. Parka fires back with an enziguri and a spinning wheel kick from the top rope, but it isn't enough to end the match. Train slams Parka on the mat and Parka gets crushed in the corner. Parka comes back with a pretty bad looking jawbreaker followed by another wheel kick and another wheel kick. I don't know, man, I think Parka maybe works better against the smaller guys on the roster. Teddy Long tells Ice Train to get it together on the outside, but he doesn't take the advice. Parka pulls off a corkscrew attack from the ring to the outside, but it isn't enough to put Ice Train away. The big man comes back with a hard clothesline when the action gets back inside the ring. The match then ends with Ice Train's splash, a move he calls the Train Wreck. I felt this one was a bit of a mismatch, honestly. Train looked good, but we've seen better from Parka. We then had the dream team of Chris Jericho and Eddie Guerrero, who we'll call the Spangly Jacket Glitter Boys, taking on the Faces of Fear. Guerrero and Jericho are quite manly, but those jackets tonight unfortunately brought them down a few notches. Remember too that Jericho and Guerrero had a match against each other last night at Super Brawl, a match that Eddie won. A pretty typical Faces of Fear match here. The Spangly Jacket Glitter Boys worked well as a team, but it didn't take long for Ming and the Barbarian to single out Chris Jericho, and so the match became all about survival. Jericho struggled to make the hot tag and he took an absolute beating from the Faces of Fear. Eddie eventually gets back into the match and he does well against the Barbarian. Jericho and Guerrero perform a double suplex and they try to end the match, but Ming pulls the rope down when Chris goes for a lion salt. Dean Malenko then runs down and he pushes Eddie off the top rope, resulting in Eddie falling into a kick from the Barbarian, and the Faces of Fear pick up the victory. Guerrero accidentally cost Malenko the Cruiserweight title last night at Super Brawl, so it looks like we're going to see another Malenko vs Guerrero rivalry. I'm not complaining about that at all. As Nitro goes into its second hour, Tony Schiavone, Mike Tenay and Bobby Heenan talk about Randy Savage joining the New World Order, and they wonder what this means for Sting. Is Sting a part of the group now also, or will he still continue to fight the good fight? We have another two Nitro matches, Juventud Guerrera vs Rey Mysterio Jr. and Pat Tanaka vs Prince Iaukea, and we have an ECW match on WWF Raw, Taz vs Mikey Whipwreck. Jerry Lawler gets an interview with Ken Shamrock where Lawler pretends to have trained with the world's most dangerous man. Jerry says he taught Shamrock how to fight and he taught him some sweet submission holds, but Ken straight up says he doesn't know who Jerry Lawler is and the king is a liar. Ken has a kinda deer in the headlights look about him here, but he still plays it well. Shamrock would play a big role in WrestleMania 13, but more on that soon. Paul Heyman says Raw has sucked without ECW before introducing the next match, Mikey Whipwreck versus the human suplex machine Taz. The Manhattan audience loves Taz, by the way. They were even chanting his name during the Ken Shamrock interview. Taz starts it off by trying to hyperextend Mikey's arm, but Whipwreck makes it to the ropes. Top wrist lock counters and a hammerlock counter ends up bringing Mikey down to the mat, while Paul E promotes ECW's very first pay-per-view event. Taz hits a very impressive pinning Northern Light suplex, but Mikey kicks out. Taz follows this up with a rear salto Tazplex. We again get brought back to reality when Faarooq shows up to cut a split screen promo, and he talks about facing The Undertaker in tonight's main event. Whipwreck tries a sunset flip, but Taz kicks out and Whipwreck takes a clothesline. The split screen interview continues with Faarooq saying The Undertaker will need an Undertaker tonight, but back inside the ring, Taz hits a corner Alabama slam that completely rocks Mikey. Just then, the crowd look over to the entranceway as Sabu dives on Team Taz. He completely fell off the Raw sign here, by the way. Sabu then makes his way over to Bill Alfonso, where Taz pulls off a rough-looking belly-to-belly suplex. Sabu was still there to catch Mikey, though. The match ends with a Taz Mission Plex, also known as the Head and Arm Tazplex or a Gargoyle Suplex. And then we see the Taz Mission. Mikey Whipwreck topped out, and the crowd seemed to enjoy this one. As Taz celebrates in the ring, Vince McMahon says there's a huge surprise coming up next on Monday Night Raw. And if you want to learn a bit more about Sabu's fall from the Raw sign, check out the guest appearance I made on Botchamania where I read from Sabu's book. Look at this man. This is a man who just conducted Horsemen business before the show. Good job, sir. Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrera done what they done best here. There were a few spots that I could see people complaining about, such as this moment right here where both competitors' shoulders were down, but I don't mind it. You gotta remember that this was back in 97 when not many wrestlers were doing this kind of thing. Juvi stays in control for the first portion of the match, but a head scissors from Mysterio helps to turn things around. There's a nice baseball slide transition next where Rey pulled off another head scissors, but one of the best moves of the match for me was this sunset flip powerbomb from Juventud Guerrera. Mysterio managed to pull off a powerbomb of his own when Guerrera attempted a springboard senton, and the match ended with Rey performing the West Coast Pop. Tanaka then fucked around with Prince Iaukea next, like the guy couldn't look any worse than what he did at Super Brawl. Bobby Heenan says the Prince has the mentality of a coconut for trying to give the TV title to Rey Mysterio after their match the previous night. The highlight of this one was Iaukea legitimately pulling off a springboard teabag. He got the win afterwards with a flying crossbody. I was hoping for a Steve Regal run in here or something, but nah. A clean victory for the Prince, and the crowd couldn't have cared less. So, that big surprise on Raw, the Headbangers are in the ring getting ready for a tag match, and then a familiar theme song plays in the Manhattan Center. We have the returning Legion of Doom versus the Headbangers on Raw, while WCW Nitro puts on another Ultimo Dragon versus Dean Malenko match. So, the last time we saw the Road Warriors was on Monday Nitro all the way back in March of '96. Hawk and Animal spent some time with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and now they're back in the World Wrestling Federation. This is their first WWF Tag Team match since SummerSlam 1992. Unfortunately, it's at the Headbangers' expense. Mosh and Thrasher are certainly no Hawk and Animal, but they were doing some good work in the WWF since their debut, and they had a dominating yet fun match against the Hardy Boys last week. Animal destroys Mosh to start us off, and then Thrasher comes in to take a beating from Hawk. Another loud Nitro sucks chant breaks out as Mosh comes back in and he takes a backdrop. McMahon says the WWF is uncensored, fans should bring their signs, and whatever it is they chant, it's sure to get picked up on the mics. Hawk gets choked with Mosh's shirt, and so Animal comes in and he gets a little payback. A hard powerbomb from the Road Warrior looks like it really hurt, and Animal tries to rip his opponent's head off afterwards. The crowd have some more fun, this time at the expense of Eric Bischoff.
Time for some censorship. Drop kick.
Knife Edge chops have no effect on Hawk. Hawk fires back with a chop of his own before Animal comes back in. Mosh is able to tag in Thrasher and the Headbangers get an opening when Hawk hits the ring post shoulder first. We go to commercial break just as the Headbangers were about to turn things around. But when we come back, Hawk's able to hit a double clothesline. The two teams then fight on the outside and the referee ends up counting both teams out. Some might say this kinda protected the headbangers, but the Doomsday device afterwards certainly didn't help matters. Nonetheless, it's great seeing Hawk and Animal back here. Their last run in WCW was a little underwhelming, so let's see how the WWF does with one of the most legendary tag teams in pro wrestling history. Vince McMahon then tells us that not only is Shawn Michaels recovering from a knee injury, but so is the wild man Mark Mero. Mero is gonna need surgery it seems, while Shawn Michaels will hopefully be back after he locates his missing smile. The WWF then play an updated version of the HBK music video, Tell Me a Porky Pie, which was supposed to make fans feel sorry for the former WWF champion. You have to appreciate the irony of this music video, by the way, if Shawn indeed was telling porky pies, and he really wasn't injured. We all have our opinions here, let's just leave it at that. This music video though, along with the previous version, is very, very cringeworthy. They don't rate very highly on the Ming Manly meter, that's for sure. I feel like I haven't covered enough of Monday Nitro this week, so let's take a close look at the Ultimo Dragon vs Dean Malenko match. It's always a joy to watch these guys, plus we have Mark Curtis as our referee. What more could you ask for? Drop toe hold from Dragon followed by a side headlock. Dean counters with a hammerlock. Dragon manages to counter with a leg lock, and a bit of a struggle between both men leads to Dragon going for a modified STF, but he transitions into a reverse headlock. Dean replies with another armbar, Dragon makes it to the ropes. The match resets and Dragon locks in an armbar before quickly moving into a side headlock. Dragon then puts an end to the chain wrestling by nailing a shoulder block, and Dragon shows great balance by landing on his feet after a backdrop attempt, and Malenko gets taken down with a sweep. Ultimo Dragon then misses an enziguri, but Dean misses an elbow drop. Both men get back to their feet, and they're gonna reset once again. Dean extends his hand to Dragon. Dragon accepts a handshake, and Dean suckers his opponent in. The crowd pops as it's made crystal clear now that Dean has once again turned to the dark side. Dean takes his cheaply gained advantage, but he doesn't make the most of it. Dragon retaliates with a fast kick combo that floors the Iceman. After taking a drop kick, Dean trips up Dragon and he uncharacteristically begins punching his floored opponent before tossing him out of the ring. Dragon looks at the camera as if to say, "The fuck's wrong with this guy?" Dean goes to the outside and Dragon gets whipped into the guardrail. Back inside the ropes, Dean continues to punish his opponent with a suplex. Dean then applies a sort of mix between a camel clutch and a crossface, but Dragon comes back with a modified seated surfboard. Dragon then tries to get the crowd on his side before performing a Muda lock, but Dean won't give up. Malenko tries a sunset flip, but Dragon kicks out. He then hits a double underhook powerbomb, but again the match continues. Dragon counters an abdominal stretch attempt by throwing Dean out of the ring, and then he tries a springboard kick, but he doesn't get all of it. Actually, I think he got none of it. Dragon makes up for this little slip up by feigning a 619 before kicking Malenko in the chest, and then he pulls off a flying crossbody. A Hurricane Rana back inside the ring from Dragon and a pin counter from Malenko fails to score either man a victory. Dragon summons his inner Great Muda once again with a cartwheel back elbow, but Malenko catches his opponent and he lands a release German suplex. The match then ends with Malenko choking his opponent and banging Dragon's head off the mat. Sonny Ono tries to stop it, but Malenko continues choking Dragon after taking care of his manager. And Mark Curtis has no choice but to call for the bell. Malenko got himself disqualified. Mean Gene interviews Dean afterwards, and Malenko says he's tired of not getting any respect in WCW. Malenko is coming after 6 in the Cruiserweight title, but first of all, Dean wants to get his hands on Eddie Guerrero for costing him the title last night. Dean wraps up the short interview by saying he just doesn't care anymore. DDP vs Dave Taylor on Nitro. Tommy Dreamer vs Devon Dudley takes place on Raw. Paul Heyman once again introduces the competitors before the match begins. Both men have brought chairs to the ring, and it starts off with Devon taking an inverted atomic drop followed by a kick in the ass. Dreamer then hits a bulldog as Jerry Lawler continues ripping into ECW and Paul E. Dreamer brings it to the outside where he uses a pan and a cane that was handed to him from members of the audience. McMahon gets a little concerned and he talks about drawing a line, while Lawler says, "No, this is what ECW is. This is what McMahon wanted." Dreamer hits a suplex on the outside before hitting a baseball slide into a set of ring steps. The ring steps hit Devon right on the head, and the innovator of violence brings the steps into the ring, and that plan quickly backfires. Devon then hits Dreamer with a chair shot as Lawler says he's embarrassed to be a wrestler for the first time in his whole career. Devon lands a sidewalk slam on the chair as the argument between Lawler and Heyman begins to escalate at the announce desk. McMahon is caught in the middle and he stays neutral. Devon goes for a diving headbutt, but his face smacks the chair instead. Sign guy Dudley and Beulah McGillicuddy then have a few problems on the outside, but while this part of the match was unfolding, we get another split screen promo, this time with The Undertaker. Every ECW match has included a split screen promo, and I'm sure that was done by design. As Beulah low blows Devon and we see a DDT on the chair, a move that ends the match by the way, The Undertaker says the march to WrestleMania the 13th begins with the nation, and the only thing standing between the dead man and Psycho Sid is time. Bubba Ray Dudley hit the ring at the end of the promo and Dreamer ends up taking a 3D. The Sandman then shows up to even the odds and the Dudley boys end up taking a few chair shots as the crowd goes nuts. While Sandman and Dreamer celebrate in the ring, things get heated at the announce desk. Lawler tells Paul E to take a hike, and while it looks like Heyman is going to follow the King's orders, he then decides to turn around and try to fight with Jerry Lawler. ECW stars and Vince McMahon have to hold Paul back as the King tries to get in a few cheap shots. And when we come back from commercial break, the King issues another invitation to ECW. They can come back to Monday Night Raw, but if they do, Lawler will stick his fist down Paul Heyman's stinking throat. Over on Nitro, the DDP match is very, very short. Dave Taylor gets a cheap shot in at the very beginning of the match, and Dave Taylor manages to hit Dallas with a suplex. DDP fires back with an inverted atomic drop, and then Hall and Nash show up and they make their way down to the ring. Page then hits a diamond cutter and he wins the match just like that. Hall and Nash distract DDP while Macho Man Randy Savage makes his way down to the ring. Page has no idea that the Macho Man is right behind him and he gets taken out with a spray can. While the NWO take a look at the damage they just caused, a fan jumps into the ring and this guy was lucky that Big Nash showed him some compassion. Big Sexy threw the fan out of the ring before Macho and Hall completely fucked him up. He's lucky that Hall missed that first punch. DDP gets a spray job before Hall and Nash officially give Macho Man his NWO shirt. The segment ends with Dallas taking a diving elbow drop from Savage, but the NWO stay in the ring for a promo. Up next we get a recap of Bret Hart's recent problems within the WWF while the NWO cut that promo on Nitro. There's no point going over the Bret Hart stuff because we watched it all on last week's episode, but there was some new footage shown from Superstars where we saw Bret's reaction backstage after Raw went off the air. Hart wants to know where Steve Austin is and Vince McMahon apologizes for what happened. Bret doesn't accept the apology. The Hitman throws some shit around and he tells the cameraman to leave his locker room afterwards. Kinda the reaction you'd expect really. It's then officially announced that Bret Hart will face Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13 in a no-holds-barred match. This could have been a mistake by Vince by the way, as the match would of course be a submission match. Even Todd Pettengill asks Shamrock who he thinks will win the submission match at Mania, and Shamrock doesn't give an answer, he says it's too close to call. Over on Nitro, Kevin Nash grooves on the top turnbuckle as Scott Hall welcomes fans to NWO Nitro. Scott wants the fans to give it up for the newest member of the New World Order, Macho Man Randy Savage, and Hall says they won't stop there. Macho is an icon, and the NWO presents another icon who makes his way down to the ring, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Hogan tells Macho that he and the Outsiders have a special present for Savage, and out comes Miss Elizabeth, smiling for the first time in months. Bit strange how this all came about, but Randy and Elizabeth are happy to get reunited under the black and white colours of the New World Order. Not quite WrestleMania 7, but what can you do? Hall wraps it up by saying everything is well within the NWO, and Sacramento is NWO territory. The crowd pops for this. So yeah, Liz and Macho are back together after everything Hogan had done to both of them. It's a strange turn of events, and you'd imagine that Savage was maybe trying to work some inside job here, but no, Savage is NWO through and through, and that's it. Our main events this week featured The Undertaker doing battle with Nation leader Faarooq, while WCW Nitro presents Harlem Heat vs Lex Luger and the Giant in a WCW Tag Team title match. Let's look at Nitro first and save the Raw match for the end. The Tag Team title match doesn't even take place. Luger and Booker T are ready to start things off, but Eric Bischoff comes out with the New World Order. The faction get into the ring as Bischoff says, "We have a problem here with a very simple resolution. The tag titles belong to the outsiders. Luger didn't produce a doctor's release on time for his injured hand, and what's more, Luger used his cast last night while beating up Hall and Nash. Lex Luger says he'll hand over the belts on one condition. Every belt in WCW gets put on the line at Uncensored in a huge WCW vs NWO match. He trips over himself here ever so slightly, and what he meant to say was the world title gets put up for grabs along with the tag team titles." Bischoff agrees, the Giant mustn't have had any say in this at all. And so we have the outline of our uncensored main event here, WCW vs NWO, with the tag belts and the world title on the line. Hall says the NWO aren't hard to find because they have all the gold, and just then Sting comes out and he makes his way down to the ring. The Icon stands there looking at everyone inside the ring, but then he turns his attention to Hulk Hogan. The two men stare each other down. Hogan then embraces Sting, and the Stinger stands beside the NWO as the show goes off the air. The unthinkable has just happened on Nitro. Sting has just joined the New World Order. Over on Raw, WrestleMania main eventer The Undertaker does battle with Faarooq, and I think we can all guess what happens at the end of this one. Faarooq talks some trash to Ken Shamrock, saying he takes part in cat fighting. In the World Wrestling Federation, the cats grow to be tigers, and if Shamrock wants to step into the ring with Faarooq, he's more than welcome to do so. Shamrock says Faarooq needs his goons and he can't stand on his own 2 feet. If Vince McMahon wants to put something up, then Shamrock would be happy to step into the ring. McMahon would indeed eventually put something up, and it was a whole lot of money, but that's still a little while away. A lot of time wasting to start this one off. The Undertaker decides to step out of the ring and Faarooq sacrifices D'Lo in order to gain an advantage inside the ropes. This doesn't last long as The Undertaker hits his jumping clothesline before performing Old School. Faarooq then takes a back elbow before getting sent out of the ring with a clothesline. The Nation's leader gets back inside the ropes and he does a little damage to the Phenom, but The Undertaker sits up after a clothesline and Faarooq takes a big boot from a cornered dead man. As the punishment continues, Vince McMahon says there'll be a new champion crowned next week, a European champion, so the WWF are introducing a brand new title to the company for the first time in a long time. Very interesting stuff. Taker misses an elbow drop and this gives Faarooq a chance to build a comeback. He slams Taker down by the hair before clotheslining the Phenom out of the ring, and D'Lo begins attacking The Undertaker as Raw takes its final commercial break. We come back and Faarooq targets the legs. It's effective to begin with, but Taker performs a fantastic looking leg drop and Faarooq gets floored. Undertaker misses a second leg drop and Faarooq again goes right back to the legs. After doing some damage, we see a Ron Simmons chin lock. Undertaker gets up and he tries to build some momentum, but he ends up taking a power slam, and honestly, the flow of this match has been all over the place. It hasn't been bad, but it hasn't been good either. Eventually, The Undertaker tumbles out of the ring thanks to D'Lo. Faarooq tries the worst sneak attack in the history of wrestling as he walks around the ring with the steps. Just look at this. Taker ends up hitting a big boot and this guy in the audience points and laughs as the ring steps fall on Faarooq. Back inside the ring, Undertaker sits up after taking a pile driver, and then the inevitable Nation of Domination run-in happens. You think this would be Ahmed Johnson's cue, but we get a nice surprise when the Legion of Doom run in and the Nation gets taken out. And this is how Raw went off the air. Not a great match, nor a great ending to this very special episode of Raw, but still, I thought Raw was the better show this week. Raw wins this week's Reliving the War thanks to the ECW invasion and just how different the WWF show felt. The WWF matches were pretty average though, and if it wasn't for the ECW invasion, then I would have given this one to Nitro. Here's how I would have scored it using the old head-to-head system. With this victory, Raw is now catching up with 27 points, Nitro has 35 points, and we still have 10 ties. In the TV ratings, the promise of ECW wasn't enough to score Raw a win. Nitro wins with a 3 over Raw's 2.5. Next week, the Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero feud begins to heat up. Roddy Piper is back too, and the Steiner brothers are also back in action, so Nitro should be good next week. The unorthodox series of Monday Night Raw episodes continue when these fans get let out of their prison cells, and WWF Raw comes from Berlin, Germany. In my opinion, one of the best matches in Raw history takes place, and Davey Boy Smith also gets a taste of his own medicine. So make sure you subscribe and make sure you tune in for episode 73 of Reliving the War. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one, and take care.